Hello, welcome back. Unpicked, week 5, celebrating India Week. Good to see you, Ting.
Evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Enjoying this sunshine coming through. We're filming a day later because Ting has got lots of work on, and so we've had an extra bit of time, and it's the longest day today, isn't it?
It certainly is. I don't think the sun's going down just yet.
No, we'll have to go out like at 10:30 and cavort in a field or something.
No, I'm going to bed very shortly.
Okay, let's rattle through then. Some lovely comments from last week, as always. This one made me giggle, Ting. Thought of you. Osprey, she says there's an edge quilting tool that comes with most sewing machines to enable straight lines to be sewn. I just found mine. But this is the bit that made me giggle. Just to let you know, virtual slippers have arrived, and then I had nowhere to throw them because the show was much better. We did enjoy it. Reduce, reuse, recycle week was great for once, wasn't it? We
It's
were all
normally
quite
a
positive.
guaranteed slipper, really, isn't it? But
Yeah.
they've
Well,
managed to dodge it.
and Fan P also says no slippers. Yep, none at all. And this one made me smile from Lisa. I love watching you guys, even when there's no controversy. I'm watching from another country and have no friends who sew. Definitely no friends who watch the bee. It's like hanging with friends when your chat comes out.
I was going to say, finish that sentence. Don't just stop with "I've got no friends." And if the
Because
best prospect for me and you, that doesn't hold out a lot, does it?
I put on there, oh, it's going to be a bit of a boring video because we just went through bang, bang, bang. We like it, we like it, we like it. So it may not have anything there to watch. And someone else then said, we boring never. So that was nice because that is sometimes the thing, isn't it? Where one of the early things I was taught with drama is in a play you need conflict to make it interesting for the audience. So with Ting not throwing any slippers, it's like, will people want to watch? But clearly they do. So that's nice, isn't it, Ting?
It is, yeah.
Is it going to be any different this week? We'll soon find out. So, where are we then from last week? Who did we lose? We had to say fond farewell to Don. It was just basically time. He's clearly a skilled technician sewer, but as for this competition, it's all about time. He was probably always going to struggle from that point of view, wasn't he, Ting?
Well, yes, but to be fair, if we're talking about time, I don't think anyone's exactly doing
Yeah.
quite well when it comes to timing. So, it was, we did say that there was a possibility that it could have been a couple of other people last week. So I think, it was just how it fell.
Now, talking about time, I think you set me a challenge and said, can you do some analysis on time? You know me, I have. This is going to be fascinating to look at. So, this is our current series, okay, everybody? Where's my pen?
Oh,
Lost my
God.
pen.
Pen.
Now, that is the time allowed for every challenge so far. So you can see there the casual day dress, 5 hours, making a
Okay.
kit, 4.5, garment for the Riviera, 4, wedding dress, 4.5. Okay, that's season 10. Now, the next slide is going to be very revealing. So I've shrunk it down a
Oh,
bit, but I think you can still, I think you can still see. So there's
no.
can you see? You can. Season 10's there. This is season 8. 5.5, 555. I just chose some random episodes,
Right,
and
okay.
I have written down what they had to do. The two-piece co-ord was 5. The jacket, where they had to be inspired by a sporting hero. Can you remember that one?
No.
5. Series 7, 5, 5.5, 5.5. So this is clearly going
Okay.
up. That's gone up, hasn't it? So we've had
Well,
mostly 4s and
clearly going down.
4.5. Eh?
It's clearly going down if we're coming to now.
Oh yes,
isn't it?
yeah.
It's not.
Or
Yeah,
if
yeah.
we go back in time, though, it's going up, isn't it? But yes, you're
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Sorry. Right. Well, you're going to be amazed when you see the next ones. So the
Oh god,
next one, I
can't
went
really see
to
these ones, but okay.
Series 6.
Oh god,
All right. 4.55 and 5. Now, Claudia, Series 3. Look at that.
I wish I could. You're gonna have to
Seven.
just.
Sorry, Ting. 7.5 was an avant garde dress. 6.5, a leather jacket.
Oh yeah,
Just
I
a leather
remember that.
jacket. Remember that?
Yeah, but leather's not easy to sew with.
No, true. Structured kilt, 6.5 hours. And then a 1950s inspired sheer blouse, 6 hours. And then the last one,
Oh,
Series 2, 7 hours.
for what?
6.5 hours, 7 hours. Look at that. 7, 7.
What did they have 7 hours to do?
7 hours was to make a gown showcasing couture skills. So the
Oh, okay.
rounds are very different too.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to find something different. You can't have, we've said why can't you have a shirt every year? But I suppose they have to look at it differently. But it does kind of not settle an argument because we're not arguing over it, or certainly we're not. But I know certainly online there's been a lot of chatter about the quality of the sewers because people aren't finishing. We
Yeah,
saw unfinished garments again this week, and we've said how important it would be to actually see some good finished garments as opposed to always having a hem that's down and always having a button that's falling off and everything like that. And the reason I set you this challenge is I was like, well, it would just be interesting to see how many hours they had, because if they was getting the same amount of time, then you have to come to the conclusion that these sewers are not as good as other years. But if you take this information, they're
it's
given, in some cases, 3 hours less than what they've had in
absolutely.
the past.
Yeah, there
And,
is.
so then when you start looking back and going, oh, well, in that series, we had this really nice dress or this really nice suit or this really nice jacket or whatever like that. Well, if you've got 5.5, 6 hours to do it, and they're currently giving them 4
Yeah,
and 4.5, then they can't be expected to finish it.
yeah,
And so, the stuff that's being said online, which, in some cases has been a bit nasty about how bad the sewers are, but in reality, they're 2 and in some cases 3 hours under
absolutely.
what was going on
Yeah,
5 or 6 years ago. So much for celebrating our 10th birthday, because what they've done is they've put all of their sewers under the cosh.
yeah. And whether that's for entertainment or for better editing or whether that's money, that to me speaks money. They can't have so many production crew there all day or however many days,
Well,
and they've cut it right down because they've gone from 7 and 6.5 to 4 and 4.5.
but it's still done over a weekend. It's not suddenly taking 3 days to film and now it's taking 1.5 day. They do the first 2 challenges on the first day and they do the second one on the second day, and that's how it's always been.
I don't know. I don't know whether it's changed. I don't know whether since COVID it's gone to a 2 week your program. What's the one you watch? Drag Race, where they film over 2 weeks back to back. I don't know whether it's like
They,
that now.
they did do that for COVID because they bubbled everyone up.
Yeah. Has
And they
it
did that for a lot of these programs, especially these love production ones,
has it
because
kept
they have
that
the
way or
same
has it gone
format.
back?
No, it's supposed to be back again to the
Okay.
2 days and the weekends, which is why they've had chance to practice in between.
Yeah.
We lost that practice time for COVID because they were filming back to back.
But when you look at that, they had a prom dress with 7 hours, and then here a garment for the Riviera and 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's just not fair, is it? So there we
So,
are, everyone.
so you then, sitting here and saying, well, we want some finished garments. And, I think we've tried to be very diplomatic about
Yeah,
things because
yeah,
I'm not there. I'm not sewing. I'm not on the TV. So, it's not up to me to say that they're good, bad, ugly, whatever. But if they're under that much time pressure, they're not going to finish.
no,
And therefore, it doesn't become as entertaining for us because It's not entertaining to see the hems falling down and the buttons falling off and everything. That's not entertainment. And that's
No,
not what we want to see. We
no.
want to see that fabulous garment that they've had the time to create.
Yeah,
And
and
the
celebrate
thing
it.
is on this program, all they've done is some idiot in production has sat there and gone, oh, well, we'll give them 4 hours. Whereas they wouldn't be doing that in the bake-off, because if a cake takes 30 minutes to bake, then it has to be timed around. You wouldn't turn around and go, well, you got 15 minutes to
Yeah,
make a cake. You can't just shave an hour off if it was the bake-off, which is the same production company.
yeah.
You know, because there is an oven involved. And just because this is machines, what are they supposed to be doing? Working like,
Oh,
someone locked in a factory
I know.
somewhere.
It's sad. It's sad because with that, say that more time, they could all be finishing. We could then get attached to our sewers because they're making great makes. That we would be loving them, and we'd be enjoying watching them succeed. But at the moment, it's heartbreaking seeing them time and time again not finish. You feel for them. I'm starting to feel for them.
Well,
It's like, oh, here we go again. It's not fair.
you've got this chat going on as well, but then there's the other issue about the buttonhole
Oh,
gate of 2024, and
yeah,
there's this idea that they're using potentially unfamiliar machines.
yeah.
Somebody had put on one forum, oh, if you're using, I think they'd managed to work out what the machine was.
A
I
genome.
think they're Genome ones, but they're saying, if you use that machine, you have to reset it after every button, and if you're not used to doing that,
Oh,
it then jams. And if you haven't been told that,
yeah,
it's always going to happen. And we saw that again with the Nehru jacket. There
yeah,
was people who hadn't managed to do the buttonholes. It should be an easy process.
yeah,
That's the whole point of having the sewing machine do it for you. And if they're being on unfamiliar machines and not being told how to use them properly, then we're even losing that little bit of finesse, because there's nothing
yeah.
you can do if the sewing machine breaks the needle
No,
or
no.
doesn't do it how you want to do it. All you can do is throw it across the room.
That's what we do. I know. And they've somehow got to keep going through that and not show that frustration. I felt for Susie. So here we go. We'll go straight into it then, as we've perfectly led into that. The Nehru jacket, which we had in abundance in the 80s and 90s. Did you have one,
Well,
Ting?
I
I had
did,
one.
but this is ridiculous, because it wasn't a jacket.
No,
Because it wasn't lined, it wasn't tailored
no,
properly, it wasn't a jacket. Why
no.
not just get them to make a Nehru shirt?
Yeah,
Because the same concept is there with the collar with the gap in between. It wasn't a
yeah,
Nehru jacket because it wasn't lined. You couldn't have gone out and worn that anywhere, because you would be able to see everything on the inside.
yeah,
So again, they've taken a challenge which, if they've been given, 5-6 hours to do and do it properly, then it might have looked like something, as opposed to, the mess we were seeing again. We had
well,
buttonhole problems and,
yeah,
and everything. And I get like the placket pockets that, I wouldn't be able to do one of those. I have never done one of those. I mean, I could probably follow the instructions. So I can get that you want to test them out on these little things like that. But it wasn't a jacket, because, and don't say that it was, because you're going to get amateur sewers who are watching this and go, oh, I'm going to go out and get that pattern. And then they'll make it up, and then they'll realise how flat it is and that it
yeah,
actually isn't probably wearable. Whereas if they'd just done it as a shirt, or if they'd given them the time to make it into a jacket, then,
yes, key.
again, it would have been more impressive.
Yeah, key point. And I mean, Susie is
Uh,
one. You had to feel for her. That was that was Buttongate all over. Now I feel for
well,
Marcus
it was
last
more than
week, and now I
buttons.
feel with Janet.
It was more than buttons, though.
Oh,
She cut the
of
pockets
course.
wrong. Look at the hem
Yeah.
on it. I mean, if it was car crash telly, if you wanted it.
But again, though, fabric choice. I know that celebrating India, she almost went back. If you rewatch it, viewers, she was like, "Oh, is this too hard? Should I get a solid?" And she almost goes back to the haberdashery, but she went, "Oh no, no!" And he's like, "Oh
Yeah.
no!"
This is the issue again, isn't it? Because they'd said they wanted a jacket, so 2 or 3 of them chose the brocade because it is thicker. You would have that for a jacket.
Yeah,
Other people just chose a cotton, so it could have
yeah,
therefore been a shirt.
yeah,
And I know I've just sat here and said, well, maybe it's the show sabotaging itself by not giving them enough time and trying to defend the sewers. But then you had, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name. She chose a silk fabric. Well, That isn't what you make a jacket out of.
Yeah.
So then you're back to saying, do you know
Lauren.
what you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're doing, or do you not? And are they giving you enough time, or are they not? And so every time there's like, I feel like, oh, well, I've made a couple of steps forward. The program is rubbish and they're sabotaging them. You then go, well, then you're making silly decisions to some of the sewers. It's difficult this year. And I really hate to say it, but the amount I'm now in 2 groups on Facebook that I joined to just kind of see, where they discuss this. And the common thread running through are these things. Are the sewers any good? Is the program sabotaging itself? Why can't I see nice finished garments? I don't know.
Completely agree. Well, we did see one nice finished garment, and it was Alex. Yeah. She chose the right fabric, didn't she? That's her experience there. Her experience. Yeah. That's her skill. Yeah. And very nice. So we had Susie at 8th place, bottom, which you just saw, and then Alex, who came first in that challenge. Okay. No slippers there. You just, that was just a general.
You can have as many slippers as you want this week. I think I've had enough of a rant already, haven't I?
Transformation challenge. Let's get the picture there. So what did we have in the transformation challenge? Now, I learned something today, because obviously I know about calico fabric and its links to India, but I'd never heard of Madras fabric. I recognised the fabric, but I didn't know it was called Madras fabric. So there was something new. Did you know about that? Well, of course you did.
I'd seen them. I knew it existed. I knew it was an Indian fabric. I didn't know that it was specifically Madras fabric.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Sounds a bit colonial to me, so maybe don't dwell on that too long. But but yeah, they're 2 Indian fabrics. Yeah. You were asked to make a garment out of those 2 Indian fabrics. That's right. But therefore, you cannot be surprised to come last if you choose not to use any calico.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to throw a slipper, it was that idea again.
Not throw it.
Yeah. He didn't give you calico as a joke. It was there. You didn't listen, or you've decided, actually, no, it was, I've made a conscious decision not to do it. So don't be surprised that you're bottom, because you did not finish the brief.
Yeah, they had to combine them to make an interesting summer outfit, which is a lovely outfit, but you've got to come bottom for not fulfilling the brief. Completely agree.
Well, and that's again, you then sit there and go, well, do these sewers know what they're doing? Because she's a good sewer.
Yeah,
she should have put the calico, even if she'd have used the calico for the top or something, just to break it up, something like that. I mean, she wanted to make a maxi skirt, so use it and put the volume in, like we saw further down the line. It's just well, you're making decisions that are ridiculous. So on the one hand, I want to, defends the sewers because of the whole time debacle, but then they actually are self-sabotaging themselves.
We have often said, though, how much they know the brief. Like, I just know what my kids are like when I used to teach, and you probably know the same. You give them the brief at the start of the lesson, you verbally tell them, but they're probably too busy being excited. If that was me on the transformation challenge, I'm too busy going, oh my God, I'm going to get ready to go over to that and rip off the outfits and choose my fabrics. I actually haven't listened to Patrick and what he said. So perhaps they forget the brief. They need it written down.
She was filmed going, I don't think I'm going to use calico. Everyone is using calico, but I'm going to take the risk. I'm just going to do this because So you knew what you were doing. You knew you wanted to do that. You looked around the room and saw that there were 6, 7 other sewers that were all using calico, that there was a big pile of calico in the middle of the room, and you chose not to do it. So whether she's going to turn around and say, well, no, actually, I didn't hear the brief, but everyone around you was doing it. Even if she'd have put a ruffle on, like... Pasha did round her neckline and stuff like that. Something to give it a bit of structure. I mean, the main skirt and top there is made out of the Madras fabric. It's only the structure from the pleats. She could have put that. Alex could have put that on her dress.
Yeah, but that's very clever. I love that. Do you love that? I love this design here.
Very good. And she was very lucky because she chose the Madras fabric that had the cream in it, so actually the colour, it didn't clash too much with the colour. It was very complementary.
Yeah, really, really nice. Who else have we got to look at? Oh, and Georgie. Because this came first, which I was a bit shocked at when I saw this. I thought, oh, it looks a bit of a... Like I've gone into... I've got into my cupboard as a kid and I've just put everything on.
I was shocked that this came first because while I get it that it's got a silhouette and she tried to do the stuff with the ruching and the buckle and everything like that, it's actually horrific. When you think that what Pasha had done and the sewn in and the structure, and not just Pasha, other ones as well, had actually sewn garments together and brought those fabrics together better. And that one, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, when you put them side by side.
Luke, I was wincing because I thought, oh my God, Luke's going to run out of time because he gave himself so much work to do with those circles. But he made that fabric and he turned it into a great dress and they just went, yeah. And I'm like, you're not even appreciating the amount of sewing he did to get it to that stage. You know, the others were just cutting arms and panels off and sewing them together. He cut all those out into circles, turned them into squares to sew them together to make the top. And it was just like, oh, well, I kind of like the circles, and then moved on.
Now, I know you know how much work that is because you did that sample for me at the shop. Patchwork, can you remember that sample of the circles, squares into circles? Yeah. It's you know, it's a lot of work. You just did a block for me.
They had, you know, it was like, I was worried because, you know, 90 minutes, you think, well, yeah, he's got to sew all that together and then he's still got to make the skirt and everything to go with it. So he's done exceptionally well. And I don't think that was recognised.
No.
Let alone this monstrosity at the end with Susie's where there was just random pockets sewn on. And there's Esme, who's clearly gone off her mind, going, oh, well, I love this. I would want more pockets. It looks ridiculous. And yet Pasha and Luke, they were just dismissed. And the one that won, ridiculous.
So we had Georgie winning first, and then Pasha here was second. So our top two and our bottom two. So we go into the... let's clear that. We go into the made to measure with Susie being bottom in the pattern challenge and sixth, so eighth and sixth. Lauren being seventh and seventh. So... we're kind of thinking at this stage it could be any one of them, but I actually kind of glossed over Lauren. They'd edited Susie so much. I think we said on that classic 14 minutes past when the history bit comes up, we went, yeah, Susie's going home, didn't we?
There was an element of that because she's so chaotic. And again, you know, without going, I know we haven't looked at the final challenge yet, but her final challenge still wasn't great.
No, well, let's go into it.
You know, it's just like, yes, she dodged a bullet, but it was all over the place.
So the made to measure, they had to fit, and this was an interesting terminology, which I haven't heard them do since the early days of Series 1 and 2. Fit a dress inspired by... it's an inspired by rounding, your favourite, inspired by elements of the sari. So not inspired by Bowie, not inspired by Frida Kahlo, inspired by the sari. Now, there aren't many aspects to be inspired by the sari, are there, really?
No, not at all. Buy a sari, put it on your model, boom, done. Then you can sit down and have a cup of tea for 3 hours. It was ridiculous because the only thing that you could do was put the pleats and drape some fabric around you.
Really?
That's all you can get from the sari. Yeah. And that's not dissing the sari. That's just what the sari is. Yeah. So to turn around and say, oh, well, it's got to have this, and then start going on about how wonderful... I mean, you know, this is why I thought Susie was going home. She messed up the top, but the pleats, you know, from a sari point of view, the pleats would be vertical instead of horizontal. And then to cover up her mistake, she just draped that bit of gold fabric over the top. Well, when you factor in that, even if we are saying they've been given less time in previous years, all she did is sew a skirt onto the bottom of that and then the material was just draped. It wasn't even sewn on properly, that gold.
Well, they had 4.5 hours.
4.5 hours.
Yeah.
She spent all of that pleating and only to realise she'd done it wrong.
Yeah, I think she had 2 left panels, didn't she, as well? Something like that. I'm just checking my notes. And yes, and it was not finished. It was edited with a little mini breakdown as well, with the looked upset. We just felt for her. We just like, yeah, well,
Oh, yes, because we've all been there where you realise you've done something wrong. And,
yeah,
with material, it's not, you can't, it's ages to pull things apart and start again. And when you're in a competition with a time limit, she didn't have time to make another
no.
pleated one. But then part of you's going, and this goes back to I want to defend the sewers, but I can't. Why aren't you looking at what you're doing?
Well, we've got only 8 sewers. We've got time to go through them quickly. There's Pasha's, who I've got my list here of whether she finished or not. She technically did finish, but she changed her design because she should have
She
had
didn't finish.
loads
Yeah,
more.
she didn't finish. She finished where she was up to,
Yeah,
but she should have had a floor-length skirt.
yeah,
But fair enough, because she was lucky, as Esme said, that was the length that it was. Because if that had been any shorter, she couldn't have claimed she was finished. I actually thought that this was one of the few where you could say it was the sari inspiration, because the way she'd positioned that green fabric to go across as if it was pulling that sari fabric across, but it was actually sewn into the dress with the gold sleeve on the other side.
yeah.
I thought that is what we should have been seeing,
Clever.
not just an ordinary straight dress with some stuff draped around it.
Absolutely. Marcus, this was a mid shot as the model was sort of trying to turn, and you can clearly see here how thick and non-fluid that fabric was.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? If you're inspired by the sari, the whole point of that lovely sari, when you see those Indian women wearing, is that it is so floaty. It is drapes and it is just gorgeous and can be pleated. And this just seemed a bit like curtain fabric. And maybe Julie
Stiff.
Andrews was doing her best Sound of Music with the curtains. It just didn't seem to drape in the way that he wanted to.
Yeah.
And again, if you're looking at it like that, well, what's the asari bit? Well, it's the bit that drapes across her shoulder.
Yeah.
This is the trouble when you have an inspired by challenge, because it opens up. So you can't say he's wrong.
No, it's right.
It's got it there. But, again, fabric choices and the way it's like, if you want a sari, just put a sari on and go and have a cup of tea.
It's just I had to feel for this at some points when Patrick went, "Oh, I don't think this is very sari inspired."
Again, absolutely ridiculous, because who is he to judge?
Absolutely.
And don't say he's the judge, because if it's an inspired by challenge, I could have wrapped a sari round and come in a mini skirt and said, well, it's inspired by a sari. Or I could come in a floor length and go, it's inspired by a sari. He can't turn around and say, well, it's not very inspired by a sari, because that sewer has gone away, looked at a sari, looked at their designs and gone, yeah, that's inspired by a sari. So to then go to the judge and going, I don't think it... Shut up. Yeah. Shut up.
I'm throwing a slipper on your behalf there for
Throw
inspired.
them. Go all off the page.
Oh. Whew. Oh, blimey. And he didn't finish. There was, a whole...
it wasn't finished. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Made to measure, and you feel for them, and it's just no fun seeing a catwalk. The best bit of the show.
Fun. No. It's no fun for anyone. It's not fun for the model, who's worried that they're about to be exposed on national telly. It's disheartening for the sewer, because they know they can sew, but they haven't been able to do it in 4.5 hours. And us as a viewer, I'm kind of going, well, I won't even bother to watch the end of the programme. I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea and head to bed. Because why am I watching a show where there's nothing any good in it?
They do have to be very careful for the rest of the season. Well, I know it's obviously edited, but if it carries on going... If it carries on going like that, it's not inspiring, is it?
No.
Luke's, well.
I liked the concept. I knew what he was doing, what he was trying to do. But in my head, I had, and I don't know if this is too much Drag Race, but I thought there was going to be more of a reveal. I thought there was going to be a turn around and spin and the dress turns into a floor-length gown, or the opposite, or something like that.
Asthma, yeah.
I mean, I liked the movement, and I liked the idea of the magnets and that. Whether the model didn't quite show it off the way it should have been, I don't know. But it certainly was very good, and he was one of the few to finish, you know.
Yeah.
But then he'd done very well because he made this structured pink outfit, and then he used a recycled sari and
Absolutely.
didn't really do much to it. He fitted it around his design, and good on him. You
Yeah.
know, can't argue it's not inspired by a sari because there's one actually hanging off her shoulder.
Yeah. Lauren, now, don't get me wrong here. I thought this was stunning. I really liked this. Where was it unfinished? I couldn't see. Did I miss
Well,
something?
it was unfinished because she hadn't finished it, and she went round and basically draped the fabric round rather than actually sew it together into anything
Okay.
meaningful.
Oh, right.
But
So that's
also,
why it looked
you
lovely,
see,
because it looked like a Greek goddess in a way with all these
well,
drapes.
that's it though, isn't it? It looked like a Greek goddess.
Okay.
It didn't look like a sari.
Okay.
It looked like a
Yeah.
Greek goddess,
Yeah.
and that's fine. And it is. It's phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah.
But to me, if you put that up there and stand that even next to Luke's with his modern design,
Yeah.
that's a Greek goddess. That's
Yeah.
not inspired by a sari. That's inspired by a toga.
Yeah, understand. And yeah, she had safety pin, and I think some of it wasn't hemmed. So yeah, okay. Georgie,
Well, again, so you can't argue is it inspired by
no,
a sari?
no,
There's one on there, but all
yeah,
she made was a straight gown and then draped a sari round the top.
yeah,
And even then, it didn't fit properly because, as Esme did, she could have taken out at least 2 inches on the back where it was all
yeah.
doubled up and folded over. And, you know, the model's there. It should have been fitted to the model.
I wonder, Ting, because they're looking at 4.5 hours. I wonder if they're just
Well,
going. There is no way we could do something big. So
I think,
let's just make
you
a
know,
dress
again,
and chuck a sari round. That's what they went. That's
again,
what they.
you know, if you're told that you've got 4.5 hours, do you sit there and draft out this phenomenal pattern that you know you're never going to finish? Or do you go, well, actually, let's have a fairly basic dress and
Yeah.
whack a thing over? The argument with that then becomes, well, if you're going to make a very basic dress, then it should be finished and fitted properly.
That is true. Yeah. Two more to go. Alex, which I
Again,
kind of
just
loved,
draped around the shoulders.
but it is just draped round, isn't it?
And, you know, like, I know they criticised them as being those kind of pleats instead of the folds,
Yeah.
but they didn't even match up. They were like that.
Yeah, you can see.
You know,
there. Yeah.
and so there you are trying to defend the sewers and going, well, you know, you've done all your
Time.
lovely research, found out that
Yeah.
they haven't got as much time as they've had in the past. But then,
But you've got
you know,
you've got 4.5 hours to make that dress. That should be doable.
and you've got
shouldn't it?
4.5 hours to match up your pleats.
Yeah. And then we get Ailsa's, who
Ailsa.
this
I don't know where
A-
you just went. Ailsa.
Ailsa? Is that what I said?
Ailsa. I was in
Ailsa.
Home and Away, married to Alf.
Yeah, but I always said Ailsa, but
No, well,
sorry.
that's wrong.
Ailsa.
That's
No,
it.
this is design. This is inspired. This is engineered. This is clever, isn't it? This is completely different from everyone's.
Well, so then, you know, we're sitting here going, you don't have enough time, you do this. I'm trying
know.
to be on the sewers side, but then the sewers are messing it up for themselves. And then you get Elsa, who's drafted her own pattern and sewn it all together and finished it in 4.5 hours. So if we are going to say, well, who should win the sewing bee? It should be her. She's done that in 4.5 hours when other people couldn't finish their dresses. She did exceptionally well the other week and so on. In fact, her and Luke are the two who are making their own patterns and finishing their garments.
Yeah, they are
You know,
being
in a true teacher
inspiring.
hat, that's
Yeah.
they've met the criteria. Everyone else is unfinished. So if I was to send in coursework where it was unfinished, they'd fail. If I send in a piece of coursework that is finished, they would pass. So why don't we just sack off everyone else and just let these two sew for the next 6 weeks and get some brilliant garments out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Because they're the only two who are managing to do it, even in that reduced time. So there is one argument to say it is possible, and therefore the others need to step up their game.
Yeah.
But there is also an argument, clearly from your research, that shows, well, you know, if I was to go on there thinking, oh, well, I watched the last series and they were given 5.5, 6 hours to do this, and then you rock up and go, well, you've got to do it in 4.5, I'd be in tears because I'm like, I wouldn't be able to do it in that time.
Yeah. Ting, as always, you nail it on the head. I can hear
No,
everyone going.
I'm tired. That's what it is.
Yeah, but I can hear people just going, "Yep, agreed. Yep, agreed." It's very fair. It's reflective of everything. It's taking everything into account. So let's quickly finish off garment of the week, as rightly so, Elsa. Well done. It's creative.
Although I felt, I mean, it was
Clever.
good. But I felt for Luke because I thought he'd done.
Yeah,
He missed it last week as well. I just feel that he is her and him, and
yeah,
followed by Pasha. I'm
yeah.
actually now starting to go, well, I want to see what they're doing. But because they're the only three finish, I don't want to see someone who hasn't been
No,
able to put a buttonhole in and whose side of the dress has been held together with pins. So the fact that Ailsa and Luke and Pasha are producing garments that are finished and that are quite good, that's good. And Luke's is good. Then maybe we have got that there. But I can tell you this now: if those three are not in the final, I'm not watching it. And I actually mean that because this is ridiculous, this series. And those are the only three that have been able to stick to these ridiculous timings and produce good things. So if they go home, not just one of them, because I know you can have a bad week, but if the three of them are not, heading towards that final, then that'll be the nail on the head for this series.
oh,
I
no.
genuinely do.
I could be talking to myself, Ting. That'll be
Well,
boring.
maybe we won't have a final episode.
Yeah.
Maybe neither of us will be watching the final because that's the state we're in at the moment. I'm sorry, and that's the producer's fault here. And
It's
you've also got me late at night and I'm tired. So when I'm tired, you get the truth.
I completely agree. We love this program, how it started, and we're just seeing it just change so much, and it's losing its charm, I think. Right, who went home? It was between Lauren and Susie, and suddenly I think I remember texting you going, "Oh my God, I think it's going to be at the last minute." And yes, it was Lauren, wasn't it? There we were, led to believe it was going to be Susie all the way through with the way they edited that. And then the producers just done that in at the end. So, sorry, Lauren, I had to say goodbye to you. Well, slippers, I've gotten, you said throw them all. I've only got 5 buttons. I can't throw any more.
Because there was just so, I mean, there's some specific stuff in there, but I think in light of where we started and the research that you'd done after I sent you away with a flea in your ear, I think it just proves a point that they're trying, and it's never meant to be an educational program. No. I know we moan and say about it, but we like the history bit, and it would be quite nice to know a little bit more. I mean, I've just started watching the new series of Bake Off the Professionals. And, they're professional chefs and they work in pairs in that program.
Oh, okay.
And, when they're talking about entremet and all of this, they explain what it all is and how it works and all of that. And they've done that every series. And again, it's the same company, and we get a bit where it's like, it's got 6 pieces and they flow together and then boom, we're off and watching people fail.
Yeah.
Because they've not given them enough time to do stuff.
Not fun. And as always, with an inspired by challenge, we know that's going to cause slippers flying too. So there we are. Well,
because, Patrick did it, didn't he? He turned around and said, I don't think very sorry. Don't care what you think, Patrick, because you didn't say use a sari or turn it into this. You went inspired by. So if I'd have done a dress with a couple of pleats down, I can tell you that's inspired. End of.
Compared to last week, there we go. If you didn't say it was boring last week and you loved it, you're going to love it. I'm hoping you'll have loved it. There we are.
I'm going to have to go into hiding, I think.
Week 5 is done. We're halfway through the season, Ting. That's amazing. Next week...
Well, and look at next week. You thought there was enough slippers this week. There's my next favourite week next week.
Okay. I know what my job is. I'm just writing that down. Make more slippers. Let us know what you thought of week 5, everyone, in the comments. What are you going to say? I think everyone's going to be going, agree with Ting. Agree with Ting. Ting, yeah, agree. We'll see.
Well, next week, I shall have to wear a hat and a false moustache and change my name No, this side, isn't it? I'll have
Okay.
to change the name to something else.
No, it's all fair and all very reflective. I think people completely understand where you're coming from. Completely agree. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you for week 6 Children's Week then. Cheers all. See you. Bye.